Hello, and welcome back to another guest episode of Straight from the Drafts. This is an exciting one. I'm so excited to have on Kyra. Hi, Kyra.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Kyra first entered my world in June last year, so June 2025 at Confidence Live. And I've just actually told this story before we pressed record, but I'll tell you anyway. When Kyra walked on stage and introduced herself, I literally wrote down the pronunciation of her name because I was like, this is someone I am going to want to talk about. Um, so, yeah, this is very exciting for me. Really, really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I remember you because you did a sort of recap of the Confidence Live event. So, for anyone who had the unfortunate luck of not being able to go to Confidence Live, it is like a full day conference. There's confetti cannons, like lasers, drag queens, like the vibes in the room are immaculate. There are different types of speakers, and like there was a comedian like throughout the day. It was just so good. So you stood out because you did a recap of that day. So I got to have fun on the day of the conference, and then I got to enjoy it again because I got to listen to your recap. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that episode is quite a popular one. It's quite a well listened to one. So if you haven't heard it,
Really?
go and listen because there's so many great takeaways from that day. Kyra being one of them. So yeah, definitely go and give that a listen after you've finished this episode, of course.
Yeah, of course.
Kyra is sort of a self trust queen. She is a manifestation and confidence coach. So, with the guest episodes being themed all around like sharing stories of self trust, this just made so much sense. Kyra, do you want to give yourself a proper introduction for anyone who, again, has had the unfortunate luck of not yet knowing who you are?
Yeah, of course. Thank you for that. So, I have been a mindset coach since 2020, mindset and manifestation coach since 2020. Before that, I worked in fashion styling, and I had the chance to work with some incredible publications. Like I did a fashion design degree. Fashion was something I lived and breathed, and I felt like I was living my dream on paper in some way with that job in fashion styling, but I wasn't really connected with it. Like something emotional wasn't connecting for me in that role. And in 2019, I went on this journey to really explore who I was, what skills I had, what I wanted to do, and what I wanted to move in next. And I actually started a podcast in August of 2019, and I was building a little community online amongst fashion and creative freelancers. We were talking about what it's like to have a creative practice, what it's like working in fashion, how to negotiate your rate, and all of these really useful tools for fashion freelancers. And then lockdown of 2020, March 15th, um, I couldn't work in styling anymore. Overnight, I lost all of my clients, and I can laugh at it now, but I have this memory of sitting on the toilet crying, being like, "What the hell am I gonna do? No!" And then I realized, oh yeah, I've been building this community. I'm gonna turn it into a business. And so I learned how to coach people. Like I did a training course. I gave away free sessions. I just spoke to everybody and told them about what I was doing now. And then when we came out of lockdown, I had a couple of people invite me to come onto shoots and to style them and to support them on the shoots. And I would say yes, and then I would be like, actually, no, sorry, I can't do this. I'm working on building something. I just had a lot of faith and a lot of trust that um, I was working on something that would need all of my energy, all of my creativity. I really wanted to see where it would go. I kind of think about those days as like putting every single post, every single email, every single video I made. was putting like a little penny in a piggy bank. Like the pennies on their own weren't that valuable, but after a while they started to add up to something that was really valuable.
I love that
Um,
analogy.
and yeah, it's a good one. And then I have, it's so interesting that we're talking about self-trust because I pivoted in 2020 and now I'm sort of going on a slightly another pivot. I'm growing my business. So now I don't just do coaching, I also do talent management. I help people pitch for speaking opportunities and brand partnerships and things like that. So it's so interesting because I feel like self-trust has been built into my journey.
Yeah. And now it's the ripple effect, and you're like
Yeah.
helping other people have that self trust with everything. And yeah, I think your energy is so infectious. And it's one of those pivots when you hear, like, yeah, you were doing fashion styling before, and then you went into what you do now. You're just like, that's obviously what you were born to do. It was
Yeah.
like, not, we don't, we're never grateful for lockdown or COVID or any of those
Yeah.
horrible things, but it definitely feels like it was meant to happen in terms of like the career side of things.
Yeah, like I'm very fortunate that nobody in my family or in my circle of friends were permanently impacted by COVID.
Mm.
So I was very fortunate in that way, even though where I lived on a main road every single day, multiple times a day, I would hear ambulances running up the road. So it was like a really hard time. And it's so interesting that you say, that the coaching is like what I was born to do because at that time in lockdown, when I decided I'm going to do this pivot, I didn't have that many pennies in the jar. Like I didn't have
Mm.
anything in the way to say that this is what I should be doing. And it was a hard time for me because I was living with a boyfriend that I had at the time who I think he got with me because he thought I was a cool girl who was like, oh, look at this cool girl working in fashion. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to become a coach, motivational speaker. And he was like, that is so uncool. So he was really against it. I had friends who were like, ew, what are you doing? So even though now it seems like, oh, this completely makes sense. Oh, you're so smart. You know what you're doing. At the time, I was very much, there was a lot of voices that were saying, are you sure? I didn't have enough sort of behind me to prove to everybody else that this is what I should do. And I had to really just be like, no, I'm going all in. I'm betting on this.
Well, first of all, I'm glad that it sounds like he's been spoken about in past tense because
Yeah.
boo, not the energy we like. Um,
Yeah. Also, like we sort of like we haven't been together in years, but we reconciled this. We had a laugh. Like, remember when you said that thing? Da 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 da. But I learned lots of lessons from him, and I'm actually kind of um his resistance to my idea played like a really big role in how I am able to support people because people come to me all the time saying, I'm scared to post this thing that I want to do. I'm scared to say what I really want to do online. I'm scared to launch my Substack because what all my friends think, what all my mum think, who knows that I just spent 4 years stuck getting a law degree. Like, what will she think if she sees me doing this thing? And I learn how to sort of separate my sense of belief from the
mm,
words of other people. And it doesn't matter if you have a business or not, you need to have that skill, that ability to say, no, like, this is what I think, this is what I believe, and I'm going to go and get it. And so in that first year, I had a lot of failures, like a lot of fails back to back to back. And I was living with this person. So he was looking at me like, girl, what's going on? Like, you say this is going to work, like, but it's not working now. And I really had to think about this future version of me that is going to be so proud that I went through all of this failure and I figured it out, and I almost used it kind of like a I kind of think of it like a maths equation. Like, okay, I tried launching my business this way, that didn't quite work. I'm going to tweak it and I'm going to do it again. And I kind of just trusted that eventually I would tweak it so much that it would all fit into place. And
Mm.
it did.
I think, yeah, it's an incredible feat to do something like to go out on your own and build something for yourself is one thing, but to do it when like everyone around you is going, don't do it, is a
Yeah.
whole another level of self-trust. So it's really interesting to actually hear that that was part of your journey because I am very fortunate to be in a position where like my partner is very supportive and actually probably
Yeah.
believes in me more than I believe in myself. A lot
That's
of the
beautiful.
time, which is so lovely, but it's a
Yeah.
very privileged position to be in, definitely, because I I know that there's plenty of people in yeah, your past shoes of being like
Yeah.
everyone's telling me like don't get me wrong, I've had other things in my life where I've been surrounded by people going, don't do it. I'm gonna do it. Um,
Yeah.
but it's
And can I
different.
ask, is your boyfriend a business owner?
No,
No. Okay. I love that.
it's just lovely.
He was like, yeah, I believe in you.
Yeah, I think
Let's do this.
he was like quite happily stable and hopefully, touch wood. I don't like the narrative of like an employed role is more stable than self-employed because, redundancies just
Yeah.
appear out of nowhere as well.
Yeah, it's true.
But I think he was in a position that he was like, I'm definitely good with what I'm doing right now, and
Mm.
you're miserable crying on the floor. So
Yeah.
let's try it. Why not?
It's got to be better than this girl. Let's go.
Literally. So yeah, very fortunate that he was like, no, no, we're just gonna work with a happy Neo instead of whatever
Yeah.
this is. Um,
And I will say, I think one of the reasons why I was able to like put the voice of like people who are like, I'm not sure if this is the right thing. I was able to put that aside because one, I had been in the fashion industry. I knew what it was like when you're working on set and there's no HR person. Everybody's a self-employed entity from the model to the photographer. You are working the higher profile the magazine or the brand you're working with, the
mm,
more the bigger the egos, the more things that happen that really shouldn't happen on set. And that can really damage your sense of self as a creative. Like you have an interaction with someone really negatively on set, and then you don't really want to pitch for other jobs. So I could see the need for this more emotional and mental support on set. And through that first year, I didn't make it in a vacuum. I went into Facebook groups and I did so many market research calls. I said, hey, I'm thinking about launching this. Do you think that this could be needed in the industry? And I got so many people saying like, yes, like I have felt unsafe or unheard, or I don't know where to go when issues come about. So I got so much um, sort of initial interest from the people that would actually use that service.
mm,
And so it's like, as a business owner, you kind of really need to figure out, okay, who do I take my feedback from? Do I take my feedback from somebody who believes that having a full-time job is the only way to um be an adult? Is
yeah.
that who I take my feedback from? Do I take my feedback from the troll who is a faceless troll on TikTok who is telling me that I don't look nice? Like like my videos are about like mindset, confidence. It's not about how I look. Like, do I take my feedback from that person, or do I take my feedback from the people who could be my customers in the future, who are coming from a similar background, who are trying to achieve the same industry that I am? And it is super hard. I'm not going to pretend like this was like something that I just decided one day. It was so easy. I'm fabulous and confident. It was like every single day I had to be like, I had to ground myself in, okay, I know that this is a thing that is needed in the industry, and that
Mhm.
is what I'm following.
I was going to ask actually what, if it wasn't someone going, Kyra, you'd be so good at this, oh my goodness, what
Yeah.
it was that kind of gave you that idea. Obviously, other than, well, I can't do my current job, so I've got to do something. But what
Yeah.
was it that led you to figuring out what that something was?
Yeah, so I had people who were listening to the podcast and they were like, "Oh, I love it." Like I was building a little community. I didn't really know who they were. Like I
Mhm.
could just see like the download numbers and things like that. But I remember being on set with a friend one day. We were working on a shoot for Days magazine and she was like, "I've been listening to your podcast. It's really good. Like you could charge for this." And so I would have little conversations, like little moments where people were telling me in the industry, oh, like this is really interesting, this is really interesting. But one thing I will say is the reason why I decided to be a mindset coach and not a CIC organization or something like that
Mm.
is because coaching has always been in my life in some form. When I was a teenager, my mom took me to this like 2 day coaching event with this man called Tony Robbins. He's a really
Mm.
famous coach. Um, he is a bit controversial now, but he wasn't as controversial at the time. And I was like 13 years old, and he walked into this room, this huge room in this conference centre in Earl's Court in London, and everyone was like fist pumping the air, saying, I can do anything. And my mum's there, like, yeah, I believe it. And I was just like, this is so lame. This is so lame. But by the end of the weekend, I was like, yeah, I love it. I love it.
Fist pumping.
And yeah, I was like, okay, cool. And so because my mum was in that space, she also had like lots of books around the house about like this idea that you could change the way you think and you could
Mm.
change your circumstances if you wanted to. She was the person who introduced me to manifestation. So I always kind of had it in my life in the background. It was something that I will be honest, like kids at school would tease me about, like, ha ha ha, like you think the universe is a thing, it's not a thing, only God is, do you know? Like, so
Yeah.
it was kind of something that was like small in my life. But when I got to about 2018, 2019, and I was feeling my own personal disconnect, I realized that I was using these tools to help me get through things and to experiment. It was the whole reason why I got to the point where I felt like I had the confidence to launch a podcast. So it's almost like looking back, it's really easy to say, like, oh, of course you were going to go into that industry. Like, all the ingredients were there. But at the moment, I kind of was just following the things that I liked and the things that I was interested in.
I love that your mum was so in that space because I actually think
Yeah.
a lot of the time it feels like, in the same way that you said people made fun of you at school for it. And I do really think that that is still a thing now. And it's almost been sort of, I don't know, Gen Zified, the whole woo woo space. And there's a bit of a disconnect now of like, oh, it's either our generation, but still thinking like, no, that's just fluffy and made up, or
Yeah.
the older generation being like, come on, live in the real world now.
Yeah.
I love that that came from your mum.
Yeah. It was quite like, I will be honest, like as a teenager, I definitely don't think I gave it the reverence that I do as an adult. Now I'm
Mm.
like, oh wow, that was really valuable. But as a teenager, I was a bit like, okay, you know. Um, but yeah, I completely agree. I think like I can understand when people are like manifestation mindset stuff, it's really fluffy. I definitely see things online. Even I'm like, okay, like where's the substance here? But I have seen time and time again just because you have the skills at something, just because you kind of have like the really great circumstances, doesn't mean that you will always be successful. There's something that does have to come from inside of us to make something good and to make something great.
Mm.
What really helped me in terms of building my confidence and also building like my belief in myself was looking at the science. Maybe manifestation, law of attraction isn't for you, but go and have a look online at research studies about the power of visualization, what it does for athletes and
Mm.
Olympians, why they spend so much time visualizing running around a track, visualizing a football game. There's actually this really great study um, published in the Journal of Sports Psychology in 2020 that looked at um, a group of footballers in the Turkish Football League. And they gave them these exercises to do before they went out onto the game. And the exercises are like visualize walking out onto the pitch and everybody cheering your name. Visualize tackling the most accomplished player on the other team. Visualize shaking hands with everyone on your team and on the other team at the end of the game. Like that,
Mm.
those were the things that they were asking them to visualize. And they found that this group had better outcomes than the control group who had no visualizations. And so you can go and do your own research. I always tell people, like, don't just listen to me or somebody else that you've heard. Go and like prove it to yourself that it's real, because that's when you're actually going to get the results, when you in your heart know this is real and like a real
Mm.
thing, not just because you read some post on Pinterest and now you're like, you know what, it's just all going to come to me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that can be almost learned, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I've felt that myself over the years. Like I used to be such a, I know this is slightly different, it's a bit more mindset than manifestation, but I used to definitely be so much more, my default was quite negative.
Mm.
And I feel very blessed that most people who meet me or know me now are like, "What do you mean? That's that's not accurate."
Yeah.
But like the people who knew me, whatever, like 2017, 2018, would back me up. Um, and
You've been in that journey.
yeah, it's so wild how you can really like rewire things. And
Mm.
our old habits creep out sometimes if not have enough sleep or you're a bit
Yeah.
hungry. But like on the whole day to day setting of my brain has definitely changed.
What do you think changed it for you?
Oh, I think it's like you said, you've got to really believe it from within. And I think I got to a point where I was so determined to change
Mm.
my like default attitude because I I was just really really low and I was like something's got to give now. Like it was a bit of a enough's enough moment.
Yeah.
But it was slow and it was potentially not even intentional. Like I wanted to feel better than I
Mm.
did then. But when I think about like how I respond, even if like a friend's ranting to me and telling me a story, whereas previously I might have been quick to be like, oh my God, what a bitch. Like now I'm like,
Yeah.
shall we consider that they might have been having a bad day? Like that is just
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah,
not always the
yeah.
annoying friend that says that because sometimes you do just need a moan. But that is kind of my first thought instead now. And it's
Mm.
like, whoa, when did that happen?
That's so nice. Uh, I love how it kind of like evolved for you as well.
Hmm.
Like, I think that there is so much to be said for going out and trying things. Like, I do wonder if I just stayed in fashion styling and I didn't try to build a podcast or try to build a business, would I have also learnt these lessons? Because there's
Mm.
something about putting yourself out there in front of the internet that, like, there's something about that that just makes you believe, oh, there's something happening here. Like, do you know what I mean? There's something
Yeah.
about that that is like, it's so challenging that you almost have to break down your own walls. You have to really confront how you think about yourself and how you think about the world. And that to me has made me a more positive person. Like, I was writing a post the other day about how, you know, it's really easy to criticize somebody's content if you've never made any content. Like,
Yeah.
once you start making content and you are scrolling and you see a post with like one like, you're not like, oh, it's only got one like. You're kind of like, okay, cool. Like, I love that you're doing your thing. Like, you're like, I must just be here early, or like whatever you're thinking. Like, there's nothing like doing the thing that you're criticizing other people doing that
Yeah.
will make you change your perspective.
It's so hard. Like, I mean, not even just content creation, but there's so many things, isn't there? It's like when we sit at home watching the Olympics going like,
Oh,
oh, oh, that
literally.
was not good. Can't believe they didn't land that
Why did
jump.
they do that?
What do you mean they only did a triple flip instead of a quadruple one? What an amateur.
Literally. Literally, amateur hour.
I feel like I had a thought when you were talking then, and it's just gone because I went on a ramble about the Olympics. Do you now work with more business owners, or do you still work with a range? I know you were saying, it's not just being a business owner. This was way at the start of the conversation
Yeah.
about like needing that identity and like separation of trusting yourself and knowing yourself. Do you work with a range of people now, or is it creatives and business owners?
Yeah, now I work with a real range of people, and I actually really do love that. It's not for everyone. I know some people are like, I only work with this type of person. I love working with a range. So I came from the styling industry, so I felt like the only expertise I had was people who worked in styling. So when you are doing a photo shoot, there's a photographer, makeup artist, there may be a producer, stylist, obviously. So I really attracted those kinds of people. But as I started posting the content online, I started to get a wider net of creatives, like graphic designers, website designers. I've worked with people who have full-time jobs, and they are maybe not producing something creative, but they're kind of creative adjacent in a
Yeah.
way. I've had clients who are lawyers and work in finance. Um, Over the last 3 years, I've worked with a lot of brands and a lot of corporates, hosting corporate workshops and things like that. And honestly, the mix is how I thrive. I love it because you can walk into a room of senior leaders from a range of organizations, and they will be challenged with the same sort of mindset, confidence issues as a room full of creatives just getting started. Like,
Mm.
the way they sort of position their challenge might be different. But ultimately, humans, we want to feel safe, we want to achieve our goals, we want to figure out and like move around the things that are stopping us from achieving our goals. And I think about that as maths. And
Mm.
so for me, it's been really fun being able to apply that maths to lots of different people, lots of different scenarios.
Yeah. I think that's really important. And I kind of wanted to just ask that question and clarify because you were saying around, having going on that journey as a business owner. I think being a business owner maybe forces you onto that journey. You
Yeah.
don't realize it when you're starting that that's going to happen, but it does force you down that path. But I really think that anyone listening who's maybe they're thinking about being a business owner or just not at all, I really still think this is an important conversation to have. And the thought that I'd forgotten kind of came back to me.
Okay.
It's that idea of you like we're forced into this as a business owner, and we don't what was the phrase that you said before? We It's just made you a more positive person going on this journey as a business owner. And I do think there's an element of, and maybe this is a generalization, when you're a business owner, you have taken control in some way instead of like life happening to you. I think this is how I felt. I felt like life was happening to me, and I was always annoyed at things, and it was never like my fault or in my control, like
Yeah.
I missed the train, but I didn't miss the train. I got stuck in traffic, and it was the traffic's fault
Yeah.
that I missed the train.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think being a business owner, everything feels a lot more in your control, good and bad. And I think if more people generally, whatever role, career, job title you've got, went on this journey of kind of being a bit more in control, I think it would have a huge net positive impact.
Yeah. I completely agree with you about the control thing. It's almost like it made me feel like being in a business felt like I was taking my control over the things I could take control over, but also there's a part of like letting go of control, which I
Yeah.
think is so freeing. Like when you say about the traffic example, I would also be super annoyed like that I missed the train. And but now I'm like, oh, I've missed the train,
Yeah.
and it just is, rather than that thing like messing up my whole day because I'm like and I'm angry against at the world. And I think that it's so interesting because we live in a society where we are literally trained from so young that we are gonna go to university or go to college and we're going to get a job, and that job is going to provide us with happiness and health and whatever. And then we go into the workforce and we can kind of feel like, okay, I need this job because I want to pay for my mortgage and I want to pay for my car and like whatever else. But there are so many, it can kind of feel like there's a lot of decisions being made for you, especially if you're
Mm.
working in a large organization. And even to like that person that's working in that large organization, I always challenge them to go and do something new. Even if it's not starting a business, go and like take a cooking course, like a pasta cooking course or something. Go
Mhm.
and like hike up a mountain. Go and do something where you're being challenged and where you feel like you can take back control, because it's gonna like open up your perspective of life, that you're not just on this conveyor belt waiting until you retire and the best days of your life are the 2 days that we get on the weekend. Find ways to just like change up your routine. Even that is going to have a knock-on effect on your happiness, your perspective, your ability to sort of have this like mental flexibility.
100%. I really agree. And something that you said at Confidence Live, which I think is a really important message with this journey as well, is it's not always going to be straightforward, and it's not going
Mm.
to, you kind of were sharing how you were talking more about pitching, and obviously we can mention pitch school before we end the episode. But
Of course.
of course, but how, you would follow up 9 times because you wanted the answer. And I think the quote that I maybe shared in the wrap up episode of Confidence Live was, just because you've been told no doesn't necessarily mean that what you're asking for is wrong. You're just maybe asking the wrong person. And I loved that.
Yeah, like that was a very particular story that I shared as well, because I put up a photo on the screen of this man called Mark Rudolph. And Mark Rudolph, for those who don't know, is one of the original co-founders of Netflix. He, in the 90s, millions and millions of years ago, walked into the offices of Blockbusters and said, hey, like, we're building this thing. Can you help us? Like, obviously, we didn't have Netflix the way we have now, at the time, Blockbusters was the biggest thing in the world. And Blockbusters laughed him and his co-founder out of the room. They were like, this is ridiculous, it's not going to work. Imagine if Mark just turned around and said, well, Blockbusters said no, so that's it. Let's throw away this Netflix thing and let's not do. He was obviously asking the wrong person. Eventually, if you there's like he's got some really great podcasts, so you can listen to his journey. Eventually, he found the right people to support him on that journey. But it's so interesting. Like we can, I can definitely think back to times where I've asked for things and I've received negative feedback, and I'm like, as soon as you switch the arcs to somebody else, that other person loves it. And if you had stopped, you miss out on so much. And I think this is really important. Like, we can't give other people the power to write our destinies. They don't know more about our lives than us. They just don't. They don't know more about our future than us. Nobody knows what the future is. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody says no and you're like, that is the final nail in the coffin, there's nothing I can do, you're giving that person so much power. It's the same like if you asked for a promotion and your boss said no. Okay, like you may not like the alternative of asking somebody else for that promotion, but it is an option. It is something that you can do. And so, yeah, by continuously asking, you are taking back your power, even if that person says no. There's no amount of no's that can take away your power and your ability to create from you.
I love that message. And I think it's an important one to remember that, you know, when people look at, like, they might look at you, for example, and be like, oh my gosh, she's so confident, she's doing all the things. It's so, so easy in this online world to think that everything comes easy to those people and that there's never been a struggle or there's never been a no. And it's just such an important reminder to check in with yourself because
Absolutely.
you're not the first one and you won't be the last.
Yeah, you really won't. And I, if you sign up to my newsletter, which I will plug at the end of this episode, but you will notice that in my newsletter, I'm always talking about things going wrong. Like I'm talking about rejections that I've had. I'm talking about brands that haven't replied. I'm talking about like grief and challenges. And that's something I always try to do with my content, to share the bits that are like a little bit sticky or a little bit taboo. The idea that life is just a bed of rainbows and daisies for anyone, not only is that really boring, it's missing out on all of the nuance and balance of life. Like, even when you go to the cinema and watch a movie, you don't just watch the protagonist have an amazing, unchallenged life. You usually watch the protagonist go through a series of challenges like that, beat the wind out of them, and then they overcome, and that is what makes a good movie. So the idea that like you as a person who is meant to just walk through life and everything is meant to be easy, it's just like a complete fallacy that would make your life so unsatisfying. Let me tell you this. When I got my first brand partnership, my first speaking gig was with On Running, which at the time they weren't that big. I think I worked with them in 2021. They were launching in the UK. Now everyone knows who On Running is. It's aged really well, but that partnership did not mean so much to me because of the brand. It meant so much to me because so many people told me that I couldn't do it. Like, that's what meant so much to me. It meant so much to me because it meant that I was right. Like, me trusting myself was right. Like, it was the right thing to do. I can trust myself. And it's like, whatever challenges you're going through now, you're gonna look back on this and be like, I'm so glad I took action. I'm so glad I raised my hand. I'm so glad I asked for help, because if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been able to be here. It's like, the dark only shows us how bright the light is. We need that contrast.
Love. I feel like I want to end on that note, but is there
Yeah.
any is I'm just like, yes, I'm doing the fist pumping like conference. Yes.
Yes.
I could literally just listen to you talk all day. I mean, I have started binging your podcast recently because I didn't even realize you had
Oh,
one, stupidly. So
I
yeah, I
don't
was,
promote it because I don't actually actively make like new episodes.
yeah.
But I do, yes.
But there's so much that you can go back and listen to. I feel like the show notes are going to be chunky, and like newsletter, podcast, Instagram. Just
Yeah.
like go to all these places for more Kyra because you need that energy in your life.
Yeah, you really do.
um, on the podcast, now you've shared so much gold already, but I do have a tradition of ending with your favorite like life mantra, cheesy quote that you
Oh,
would like to share. And I feel like it's going to be a difficult decision, but do you have one? Or you can, you can have a couple that you would like to share to end the episode with.
I'm gonna share this quote that I think 2021, 2022, I self-published a journal and it was called the Future Self Journal. And on the cover, it said, talk to your future self more than the voices that doubt you. So I want you to imagine you, like, I want to buy a new car right now. It's something that I'm thinking of. You know, when you're in that phase and you're looking at Auto Trader, like you're doing all the things, you're like so excited. Like, you almost want to imagine yourself with the thing that you want. You want to imagine how they're feeling, how they're thinking. And then you want to say, okay, how did they get there? What were the steps that they took to have the holiday, have the job, have the partner, have the car, whatever?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're going to start to take those steps, and things are going to go wrong on the way. And every time something goes wrong, like you reach a hiccup, do not listen to the doubts in your mind. Go to your future self. Hey, this thing has gone wrong. How did you overcome it? Have that conversation with yourself. The more you do, the more you're going to build that self trust. Your life is eventually going to line up with that vision in your head. And you're just going to be so happy that you didn't listen to those voices that doubt you. So talk to your future self more than the voices that doubt you.
I love that. And it's not something I've heard before. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Gorgeous. I'm going to add all of your links into the show notes, but is there anything in particular that you would like to shout out and direct people to at this moment in time?
Come and join me on Instagram. I'm at Kyra the Bold. Come and join me on LinkedIn if you're into LinkedIn. Also, come and subscribe to my newsletters. Like, I write incredible newsletters. People tell me all the time. So sign up to my newsletter, get this confidence in your inbox every single week. And yeah, let me know what you thought of this episode.
Gorgeous. Thank you so, so much, Kyra. And to you listening, I hope you have a gorgeous rest of your week. And I will be back in your ears next Wednesday. Bye.